So I don't think that rap fans are the only ones who do this. I definitely think that pretty much every genre has a set of fans that whenever they don't like a certain album, they'll try to push it away from the certain genre if it's kind of borderline on based on what we can really describe it as. But I do think that hip hop fans generally do this the most, and I think Igor's just the next victim of this. But if you listen to Igor all the way through, it's extremely hard not to see the obvious hip hop elements that are all over this album. Even in spots of the album where there isn't straight up rapping, that doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't hip hop. There are plenty of hip hop elements throughout this album, even if the entirety of this album isn't fully rapping. So we can start off with the obvious rap tracks like New Magic Wand and What's Good. Even though I don't think Tyler brought his best lyricism towards this album, I do think that his performances were incredible. Even though he's not the best singer, even though he's not necessarily the greatest MC, his performance is very passionate. I think he did that beautifully throughout these two tracks, and truly just very unique tracks. I got to witness them live, and it's just truly great to see that Tyler can find a very interesting pocket that only fits himself when he decides to songwrite for hip hop and other genres as well. So we can start off with Igor's theme, and this is where I've been talking about that you don't necessarily need to be rapping in order to have hip hop elements into your music. That bass line isn't something that you would hear in pretty much any other genre. That bass line just strictly feels like hip hop, very dark, sort of teasing on overusing the bass, but still sounds very polished. And the drums, I mean, these are hard hitting drums, something that I really noticed over Igor, that some of the tracks have really some of the hardest drums that Tyler has ever picked. These are surely not Apollo Brown type drums, but they're still very good, hard hitting drums. So you can definitely label this track as neo soul. In its essence, it very much still feels like hip hop. And on top of that, people forget there's a Lil Uzi feature all over this thing. It's just literally sitting right there. When you look at a track like Running Out of Time, I very much see the Kanye influence throughout this. Tyler definitely wore his influences on his sleeve throughout this album, but I don't think any of them showed as much as Kanye West. And I get huge My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy vibes throughout a track like Running Out of Time. And also the Run DMC sample is right fucking there. Like, it's literally right fucking there. Earthquake. Tyler doesn't rap in this track, but it really shows the great songwriting that Tyler has. And I don't really see songwriting as just what you write down and your lyrics and your subject matter. Songwriting goes above and beyond to knowing when are you supposed to have a bridge, when do you want to have a hook, who is the right person to fit in this track, what is this track missing? And I Fucking Hate You originally was supposed to be a 3-minute track. And if it was a 3-minute track without Pharrell, it would have still been a great track. But Tyler knew that something was missing, and he knew that Pharrell would sound perfectly over this, and it turned out to be a 5-minute track, and it went from a really great track to a just perfect 10 out of 10. And I feel like that's where Tyler's songwriting is just really ahead of the curve. And I feel like he did the same thing here in Earthquake. Sure, there's no rapping from Tyler here, but how is this very poppy track filled with pianos and very soulful instruments? How does Tyler think, wow, you know what's perfect for this? You know what this is missing? A fucking Playboi Carti feature. Nobody else would have thought of that shit. The song by itself without Carti would have been good, but if someone told me that a Carti feature was missing here, I would have told them they're fucking crazy. But Tyler knows how to incorporate that. He has made hip-hop throughout his entire career, and the fact that he's so in touch with his sound in hip-hop, knew that if he brought hip-hop into this track, it would make it a beautiful fucking track, and that's what he did here. So the hip-hop element is huge here. In a track like I Think, when it comes to the production, there really isn't much hip-hop here. Very funky, very soulful type instrumentation, but the way he's singing here, I'm not comparing it to Drake, but one of the things that Drake did that I kind of respect is the fact that he was able to make hip-hop more melody-based, and I really enjoy melody when it's done very well. And a lot of the times when Drake raps, even though I don't really enjoy it that much, sometimes when he raps, he kind of intertwines a little bit more melody into his flow, and it kind of feels like he's rap singing and shit like that. And that's kind of what I got here in I Think. I don't necessarily think that Tyler's just singing, but he's rapping in this very melodic type of way that I found it to be very groovy and work very well with the track. On a track like Our Boy Is a Gun, the same thing applies. I feel like if these were more traditional hip-hop type beats, the vocal performance from Tyler would be deemed as more rap-based, but because these are soulful instrumentals and because the production might steer a little bit away from hip-hop at times, people think that Tyler's vocal performance isn't hip-hop influenced. But I think if you look at these two tracks, I Think and A Boy Is a Gun, even though there's not that much hip-hop elements in the production, his vocal performance I think is in essence again very much hip-hop. And I don't really think that you can take hip-hop away from this album and it would still sound as good, because hip-hop is a huge part of Igor. When it comes to Puppet, I really like the minimal use of the drums and the snares in this track, especially when he comes out, the fact that Tyler just comes out rapping very fast. One of the things that I very much like about underground rap is the fact that they've started to take away snares and drums, and it's kind of taken away the restrictions they have on their flow, and that's why you see guys like Rock Marciano and Ka have these very interesting flows and interesting pockets that they can get into because they're not really restricted by the snare or the drums. And I really like how Tyler was able to do that but in a very soulful track. When he started off, there was hardly anything in that beat. He was rapping very fast, and it might have been a little bit off beat, but it still sounded very good because the fact that he didn't add any snares, any drums into that pattern allowed him to have a flow that sporadic, and it still worked in the track. And of course, the Kanye feature, some people might not like it, but I do like how minimal it was. The background, I love the line of "Hater me ain't something that I hate to see." I think the hip hop part of the track, the hip hop elements really brought it up to a whole new level. And not just the instrumentals with Igor, which I feel like some people just kind of downplay Igor to just look at his production. But when you look at everything and the way it was put together, the reason why this album is so good is in part hugely because of the hip hop elements incorporated into every single track, or almost every single track. So there are definitely tracks that I would say have hardly any hip hop in it, and those would be like "Are We Still Friends" and "I Don't Love You Anymore." The tracks were really just meant to close the album out conceptually. Tyler's kind of wrapping up his whole story, and he's not really messing with this love anymore, and he just kind of wants to move on, but in a very uplifting manner. And I feel like that's why these tracks are a lot more soulful compared to the rest. So in track 10, Most Have Gone Gone isn't really rap, but Tyler does land a verse after some of his singing in the first half of the track. Throughout the second half of the track, and Thank You, I get even more My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy vibes. And I really love what Tyler does with track 10s. He always makes track 10 of his albums kind of a two-part song. So yeah, with everything that I've mentioned, I really struggle to see the point in how Igor can't be considered hip-hop. Sure, not every single track has rapping in it, and sure, not even every single track even has hip-hop elements in it, but the tracks that do are great because of the hip-hop that is induced into it. Without hip-hop, Igor would not be Igor. Some rap fans have a hard time trying to embrace the fact that a rap album can have many more subgenres and genres than just hip-hop in it. Look at an album like 808s. To say that 808s wasn't a huge monumental moment for both hip-hop and pop music is just ridiculous. What Kanye did there was just so groundbreaking that it couldn't just be put in a box into one genre. You can't really do that. And I'm not saying Igor is going to be nearly as groundbreaking as 808s, but with the many incorporations that it has, it's very weak to just say, oh, this is just a funk album. Oh, this is just a soul album. This is just a rap album. Because it's more than just that. And this isn't just something that happens in hip-hop. When you look at an album like Rubber Soul, which is when the Beatles really started to incorporate a lot more elements into their music, it's really hard to think that Rubber Soul isn't a huge psychedelic rock moment while also being a huge moment in pop music, because the Beatles were known for revolutionizing pop music. And to say that an album like Rubber Soul doesn't break ground in both psychedelic rock and pop music is just ridiculous. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of Igor. Let me know what you would categorize it as. And yeah, I'll be with y'all very soon. Please like, please subscribe, and please share it, and peace.